When Caroline Leavitt entered the Fox News studio shortly after the passing of Pope Francis, the audience anticipated a standard political discussion from the White House press secretary. However, the tone quickly shifted. Sean Hannity tried to keep things casual, but Caroline didn't follow along. She sat silently, her attention fixed on an old envelope marked with a red Vatican wax seal resting on the table. That moment transformed everything. What began as a typical interview soon evolved into something unexpected, a live revelation, a secret long buried and a truth finally unveiled. Her final words would challenge how we perceive faith, influence, and deeply hidden conspiracies. Before we explore the full story, comment below with where you're watching from, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss our latest reports. Under the bright lights of the studio, Caroline Leavitt was welcomed with loud applause. The room buzzed with anticipation, the crowd expecting a strong political exchange. But resting quietly on the interview table, beside a sparkling glass of water, was an old envelope sealed with a deep red stamp from the Vatican, an object that seemed to carry weight. Caroline entered with a poised smile, though her eyes briefly betrayed unease as they landed on the envelope. She took her seat, her hands instinctively tightening in her lap. Host Sean Hannity, composed and confident, began, "Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're joined by a special guest, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Caroline, welcome." She gave a short nod. "Thank you, Sean." Sean pressed on, his tone measured. "You've made waves, from the Trump campaign to major policy shifts. But tonight, are we expecting commentary from the White House or something more?" The audience responded with a polite chuckle, but Caroline didn't join in. She took a breath, then interrupted. "I'm not here to talk politics tonight, Sean. I'm here because of a promise I made to Pope Francis." The studio grew quiet. Hannity raised an eyebrow, his voice calm. "A promise to Pope Francis? That's quite the claim, Caroline." She nodded firmly, though her voice wavered slightly. "He confided in me. And tonight, I've decided to break the silence." The crowd stirred, phones discreetly lifted. The envelope on the table now seemed to command the room, its presence impossible to ignore. Caroline sat still, her gaze locked on the envelope as though it carried memories she had tried to forget. Sensing the weight of the moment, Hannity leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You just mentioned a promise to Pope Francis. That's a major revelation. Can you tell us what happened between you two?" She inhaled deeply, as if preparing herself to revisit something buried. "It happened not long ago," she began, her tone calm but heavy. "I didn't receive an email or a formal letter. It was a handwritten note delivered in person by a priest. It came directly from him, Pope Francis." The crowd murmured in surprise, though Caroline didn't react. She was lost in the memory, her voice growing clearer as she spoke. "I was in Rome at the time, traveling with President Trump's delegation. We were there to talk about religious liberty, something I'd spoken about often during the campaign. I thought I was just another part of the team, a communications person behind the scenes." She paused, her eyes distant. "Then one evening, at the hotel, a priest knocked on my door. He didn't say a word, just handed me an envelope. Inside, there was a note written in slanted black ink. It read, 'I wish to meet you, just the two of us, at Casa Santa Marta. Come at midnight. Francis.'" Hannity, clearly intrigued, raised his brow. "A personal invitation from the Pope himself? How did that feel?" Caroline smiled faintly, though her confusion from the memory lingered. "Honestly, I thought it had to be a mistake, or a prank. I'm just someone from New Hampshire who ended up in politics. Not exactly someone the Vatican would single out, but something about that note, maybe how sincere it felt, or how direct it was, made me feel like I couldn't say no." She continued, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "At midnight, a simple black car picked me up. No flashing lights, no security detail, just a quiet driver. We drove through the narrow streets of Rome to a hidden side gate of the Vatican. No tourists, no cameras. Another priest guided me through dim, cold hallways, their walls lit by flickering torches. Eventually, I reached a small room in Casa Santa, Marta, and there he was, seated on a wooden chair wearing a plain white cassock. The studio remained silent, transformed by the reverence of her words. Caroline spoke of Pope Francis with deep respect and awe. He appeared smaller than I expected. Tired, like someone carrying the weight of the world. But his eyes, they were sharp, like they saw through everything. He stood up, took my hand and said, "Thank you for coming, Caroline. I heard your speech on faith and freedom. It wasn't political. It was honest." She paused, clearly affected by the memory. We sat down. He didn't bring up politics or diplomacy. Instead, he spoke about the church, about what he'd seen, what he'd felt. He told me that being Pope wasn't an honor. It was a burden. Some days, he said, he prayed and heard only silence. Not from God, but from those around him, the people he was supposed to trust. Hannity gently interjected. "Are you saying he felt isolated, inside the Vatican?" Caroline nodded slowly. More than isolated. He spoke of shadows within the church. People who called themselves Christians, but were driven by power, wealth, or worse. He had tried to bring change, but each move felt dangerous, like walking on thin ice. Then he looked straight at me and said, "I need someone from outside, someone whose voice can speak the truth. And I've chosen you." She reached out, touching the envelope on the table gently, as though verifying it was still real. He gave me this. Inside the envelope was a single folded sheet of aged parchment. Caroline unfolded it with care, revealing handwritten lines in the same delicate black ink she remembered. She began to read aloud, her voice calm but deliberate. "To the one I trust, the church is not just a house of prayer. It has become a battleground. Beneath its sacred walls lies a network of influence, power, and compromise. I tried to change it, but every step brought resistance. Those in robes speak of God, but act for themselves. I fear they have turned the church into a shield for ambition, not faith." Caroline paused, glancing up to gauge the room. The studio remained silent, the weight of the words pressing down. She continued, "If I fail, the truth must still be told. You are not a priest, but perhaps that is why I chose you. An outsider with no ties to the chains inside these walls. Reveal what I could not. Speak what they fear to hear. Let the world decide what to believe. Francis." Caroline lowered the letter gently onto the table. Her voice, though composed, carried a noticeable gravity. He didn't name names. He didn't include accusations. But this letter wasn't about specifics. It was about conscience, about knowing that something has gone deeply wrong. Hannity, quiet until now, finally spoke. "Caroline, this is significant, if authentic. This note challenges the very perception of the Vatican's internal integrity. Are you concerned about backlash? About what comes next?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes, but concern doesn't outweigh conviction. This isn't a political move or a media stunt. It's the final wish of a man who held one of the most powerful roles in the world, and who knew that truth can't survive without a voice." The envelope, now opened and empty, sat beside the letter. Caroline leaned back slightly, her hands no longer clenched, her tone unwavering. "This isn't about religion versus politics. It's about transparency versus silence. Pope Francis wasn't perfect, but he believed in reform and he understood the price of truth. I may not be able to change institutions, but I can honor his final request." She looked directly into the camera again, her voice steady. "To those watching, I don't ask for belief. I ask for thought. Reflect on what's been said, not because I said it, but because someone far greater entrusted it. What you choose to do with it, that's in your hands now. Hannity gave a slight nod, his voice returning to its normal rhythm as he closed the segment. Well, tonight's broadcast took an unexpected turn. We thank Caroline Leavitt for her courage and candor. We'll continue to follow this story, and the reactions it provokes. The lights dimmed slightly as the show wrapped, the camera panning one last time to the parchment letter on the desk. And so, what began as a typical political interview ended with something far more unusual. A whispered confession, a long silenced voice, and a question the world would now have to face on its own. I was afraid that if I spoke up, people might think I wasn't stable enough for this role, or worse, that someone might come after the envelope. So I locked it in a small safe at home. Still, every night, it felt like a ticking clock. Softened her voice, as if sharing something deeply personal. Then one night, everything shifted. I had a dream, nothing like any I'd had before. I was standing in a vast, empty hall with marble walls gleaming under soft light. No chairs, no people, just me. And at the far end of the room, there he was, Pope Francis. The audience remained, silent, drawn in by the vivid image. Caroline continued, her expression distant, almost reflective. He wasn't dressed in his usual white papal robe. He wore a simple gray cloak like a pilgrim. As he approached, I felt warmth, but also a deep sorrow. He said, "Caroline, you carry a voice the world needs to hear. But you must decide. Protect yourself, or follow the truth." She paused, her voice faltering slightly. Then he brought up a memory I'd buried. When I was a child, my grandmother took me to church in New Hampshire during a difficult time for my parents. I remember kneeling before a statue of Mary, not knowing what I was praying for, just needing peace. In the dream, he said, "You prayed for light back then. Now you must carry that light, even if it brings shadows." Hannity, clearly intrigued, asked, "Do you think it was just a dream or something more?" Caroline gave a slight shrug, her eyes weary. "I honestly don't know. But when I woke up, I was shaking. I was drenched in sweat. It felt like he was reaching out, not from this world. That moment made it clear I couldn't avoid this anymore. That envelope wasn't just paper. It represented something greater, a responsibility." She explained how, in the days that followed, the pressure intensified. I noticed subtle changes around me. A close advisor asked if I was all right, as if sensing something was off. Then a journalist called, alluding to rumors about Vatican secrets connected to me. I felt like I was part of a game, but I didn't know the rules. Looking directly at Hannity, her voice was steady, but it wasn't the notes or the dream that made me come forward. It was hearing he had died. I watched the funeral coverage from my office and felt hollow. If I stayed silent, I wouldn't just be letting him down, I'd be betraying myself. The audience listened quietly as Caroline gently touched the envelope, her fingers brushing against the red seal. I brought the envelope here tonight because silence had become too heavy to bear. He chose me, not because I'm extraordinary, but because he believed I would speak when the time came. Hannity leaned in, his voice softer now. "And that time is now?" She nodded, eyes locked on his. "Yes. But before I open it, everyone must understand. This isn't just about the Pope. It concerns all of us." The studio grew still, the anticipation mounting like a held breath. Hannity asked again, voice lowered. "With curiosity, Caroline, you've spoken about the secret meeting, the warnings, and this powerful dream. But why now? Why this moment on live television?" Caroline glanced at the envelope, running her fingers over its surface as though drawing strength. It wasn't a single moment. It was thousands of small ones, all building up until I couldn't ignore them. She described the weeks after Pope Francis's death. When I found out he was gone, it felt like a door slammed shut. I was in my office, watching his funeral on the screen, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was failing him. That envelope. It wasn't just a document. It was a symbol of the trust he placed in me. But I was afraid. Afraid of what I'd find inside. Afraid of what it could cost me. She reflected on the weight of her position. As press secretary, every day was filled with briefings, managing questions, defending policy. But the anonymous warnings kept appearing. One showed up in my briefcase on a flight to Florida. Another was left on my windshield. They all carried the same message: stay silent or lose everything. I began doubting everyone: staff, colleagues, even friends. My husband noticed I was different, but I couldn't tell him why. "How do you explain something even you don't fully understand?" Hannity interjected, his tone firm. "Did you ever consider walking away? Just locking it away and moving on?" Caroline looked him in the eye, unshaken, every single day. "I have a son, just a few months old. A husband who believes in me. A career I've worked tirelessly to build. Opening that envelope could jeopardize all of it." But I kept thinking about his words that night in Rome. He didn't choose me because I was fearless. He chose me because he believed I'd find courage when it truly mattered. Her voice grew firmer. Then one morning, everything changed. I was feeding my son when a package arrived. No return address, just a plain brown envelope. Inside was a typed note that read, "The time has come. Speak, or the truth dies with him." Alongside it was a small silver cross, just like the one my grandmother used to wear. That was the moment I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The audience remained silent, the room holding its breath. Caroline's words carried weight and sincerity. That night I paced the living room with the envelope in hand. I thought of my family, of the risks. But I also thought of the children back in that New Hampshire church. People searching for hope through faith. If what he gave me could protect even a sliver of that light, how could I stay quiet? She explained her decision to speak publicly. I needed a space where no one could alter my words. A moment where the message wouldn't be filtered. This program, this moment, is the only chance. I told my team I'd be doing an interview, but not why. They assumed it was about policy. Only I knew it was something far bigger. Hannity tilted his head slightly, his tone gentler now. "Aren't you?" Caroline nodded, her expression open and sincere. "I'm still afraid," she admitted, "but fear isn't a good enough reason to break a promise." She pictured him, alone in that modest room, placing his trust in her, asking her to carry something. He no longer could. If I stay silent now, I'll live with the regret of missing the chance to help someone. She straightened in her chair, hands placed firmly on the table. Between her and Hannity lay the envelope, a quiet reminder of everything at stake. Before I came here, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went to my room, closed the door, and knelt. I didn't pray for answers. I prayed for strength. She paused. I saw my grandmother's face, remembered her telling me to stand tall, and I felt him, somewhere, urging me forward. The audience was still, completely absorbed. Caroline's voice was strong, her eyes alive with purpose. "I'm not here for recognition. I'm here because someone who carried so much asked me to carry a small part of it. And tonight, I'll keep that promise." Hannity nodded slowly, fully, aware of the significance of the moment. "So what now, Caroline? You're holding the envelope. Are you ready to open it?" She didn't reply right away. Instead, she held up the envelope, the red wax seal catching the light. "This isn't just about what's inside," she said, her tone calm but pressing. "It's about what happens when we stop hiding from the truth. I don't know exactly what's in here, but I can't walk away from it." The studio lights seemed to dim, the focus narrowing to Caroline and the envelope, its bright red seal resting between her and Hannity like an unspoken challenge. The crowd, drawn in by whispers of hidden meetings, threatening letters, and a strange dream, held their breath. Hannity leaned forward, sensing this moment was bigger than a typical interview. "You've taken us on quite a journey, Caroline. Now, you're holding the envelope. What are you going to do?" Caroline ran her fingers over the wax seal, her grip firm, her eyes steady, though a flicker of nerves showed. "I've carried it long enough," she said clearly, shedding any hesitation. "Pope Francis gave it to me because he trusted I'd know when the time was right, and now I do." Without waiting, she laid the envelope on the table. From her jacket pocket, she drew a small knife, her grandmother's gift, its handle marked with a simple cross. Under the lights, the blade caught a sharp glint as she carefully sliced through the wax. The quiet sound of the seal breaking was crisp, like a door unlocking. The audience leaned forward, some whispering among themselves, but Caroline didn't seem to notice. She opened the envelope and removed a thin sheet of paper, the Pope's, distinct handwriting easily recognized. She took a breath and began to read, her voice calm but heavy with significance. "Caroline, you are light in the storm. I write with a burdened heart, for the church I cherish is being eaten from the inside. Some use God's name but serve power. They don't destroy with weapons, but with smiles and false promises. I have fought, but I cannot defeat them alone." The room was silent except for Caroline's voice, echoing with weight. She continued, "I see a shadow, not an enemy, but posing as a friend. He will erase faith not with violence, but by draining it of meaning. If I am gone, you must speak, because truth is the last light we have." The audience shifted, stunned. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Hannity, eyes wide, broke in. "You're saying the Pope predicted a threat? A real one?" Caroline didn't respond right away. Instead, she laid down the letter and pulled out another note, smaller, handwritten, the letters uneven, likely rushed. "There's more," she said in a lower tone, like she was revealing something dangerous. "He mentioned a group. They call themselves Namen. Not enemies, but not allies either. They say they want to save the church, but I'm afraid they'll ruin it first." She looked out across the audience, her voice steady. "Namen," she repeated, the word hanging in the air like a warning. "I don't know who they are, but after he died I got this." From her pocket, she pulled a small, unlabeled black USB drive. It was sent to my house. No note, just this. I watched what was on it, and it confirms what he said. Hannity raised an eyebrow, his voice tense. "You're saying there's proof. What exactly can you share?" Caroline nodded, signaling the production team. A large screen behind her lit up. A grainy, hidden video appeared. It showed a stone-walled room in the Vatican, lit by candles. 4 men in dark robes sat around a table, whispering. They spoke of secret money, deals made in Dubai. One of them mentioned Namen by name. They know too much. We need to silence them before the cardinal finds out. The video abruptly ended, the screen fading to black. The audience gasped. Some reached for their phones. Hannity, visibly shaken, turned back to Caroline. This looks like a conspiracy inside the Vatican. Are you sure this is real?" "I'm not sure," Caroline answered honestly. "But it came with a message. The Namian lives." She paused. "I checked with a friend in the FBI. They confirmed the footage is genuine, unaltered but untraceable. Someone wanted me to see it. And now I want the world to see it too." She turned to the audience, her voice urgent. The Pope wasn't warning about just one man. He was talking about a system, a network of people who twist faith to control others. He chose me because I stand outside the church, because I could speak where he could not. Suddenly, a buzz echoed from her phone on the table. A message flashed across the screen. Caroline glanced at it, and for a brief second her face went pale. But she quickly regained her composure. Hannity noticed and asked at once, "Is everything all right? What just happened?" Caroline glanced at her phone, reading swiftly. You've gone too far. Namian is watching. I just received this, she said, her voice slightly shaken but steady. She held the screen up to the camera as murmurs spread through the audience. They know I'm speaking out, and I'm not going to stop. Hannity tried to regain focus, though his voice wavered slightly. Caroline, you're putting yourself at risk. Do you believe it's worth it? She looked directly at him, her eyes intense. If I stay silent, everything he stood for is lost. I'm not only speaking for him, I'm speaking for those who still believe in good, even when the world tries to extinguish it. Online, social media exploded. Debates sparked over whether she was a hero or reckless, and what secrets the Vatican might be hiding. Some audience members applauded, others sat still, clearly overwhelmed. Caroline placed the envelope and USB drive on the table. Her voice rang out, firm and unwavering. This is only the beginning. The truth is aflame, and I won't let it die. Hannity, uncharacteristically unsure, looked at her, then the audience. We need a moment to process what's just happened, he said slowly. Caroline, is there anything else you want to share? She shook her head slightly, eyes focused. I'm not finished. But to make sense of everything, there's one more thing. I need to show you. She pulled a small photograph from her pocket, keeping it face down. The room tensed. Then, from backstage, a loud crashing sound echoed, like breaking glass. The crowd stirred in alarm. Some stood, scanning the space. Caroline remained still, holding the photo firmly, her expression calm but alert. The Vatican. Envelope and USB drive sat in front of her, now central to something unfolding. Hannity turned to her, trying to remain composed. Caroline, we've just received a security alert. Do you know what's happening? And that photo, what are you about to show us? She took a deep breath, eyes scanning the crowd as if looking for stability. I don't know who's out there, she said, her voice quiet but clear. But I know they don't want me to continue, and that's exactly why I must. She lifted the photograph slightly, still face down. The studio lights bounced off its glossy surface. This isn't just an image, it's proof I wasn't alone the night I met the Pope. Though clearly unsettled, Hannity kept his role. What are you saying? Is this connected to Namian or something else? She nodded, but didn't speak right. Away. After he died, this photo arrived in the mail. No note, no return address. It was taken the night I visited him at Casa Santa Marta. She turned the photo over, showing it to Hannity first. In it, a dim corridor lit by a hanging lamp showed Caroline and the Pope in conversation. But in the far background, partially hidden, behind a pillar was a cloaked figure, face obscured. The audience stirred, many leaning forward. Hannity squinted. Who is that? A witness, or someone following you? Caroline placed the photo on the table, just out of the camera's view. I don't know, she said, her voice briefly faltering before regaining control. But this wasn't the only one. Over the years, I received 3 more photos from unknown sources. Each time, this same figure appears, always in the background, always watching. She took a small envelope from her pocket, pulled out 2 more photos, and laid them beside the first. Look here, she said, pointing to each image. Same body shape, same cloak. I even hired a private investigator. No results, no fingerprints. No leads. Someone wants me to know I'm being watched, but they don't want me to know who they are. Hannity, clearly invested but skeptical, asked, Do you think this person is part of Namian, or the threat the Pope mentioned? Caroline met his gaze firmly. I believe they're connected. In my dream, he told me, you'll see the darkness before you see the light. This person could be with them or against them. But one thing's certain, they knew about the envelope. And everything I've just shown you, she pointed to the first photo. That night in the Vatican, I thought it was just him and me. This proves someone else was there, watching, documenting. And if they were taking photos then, they might be watching now. Her words sent a ripple through the studio. Several audience members glanced around nervously. "Are you saying we're in danger?" Hannity asked. Caroline gave a small shrug, a faint, weary smile on her lips. "I don't know. But I do know this. Truth has always come with risk. I brought this here so everyone could understand the Pope didn't entrust me with a fantasy. There are people who want this hidden." She turned toward the audience, her voice rising slightly. "I'm not asking you to believe me without question. Just ask yourself, if there's nothing to hide, why are they trying so hard to silence me? Why the threats, the surveillance, the warnings?" Suddenly, another noise rang out from backstage. Metal, clashing. The audience flinched, some gasped. Hannity gestured to security, but Caroline stayed still. "They're trying to frighten me," she said, her voice like iron. "But I made him a promise, and I intend to keep it, whatever the cost." Hannity's tone turned urgent. "Caroline, maybe it's time to stop. For your safety, and for everyone else here." She shook her head, eyes burning with conviction. "Stopping means letting them win. I'm not just speaking for myself, or even for him. I'm speaking for everyone who's been silenced, who never had a chance to be heard. If I stop, who will continue?" She lifted the first photo, finally showing the mysterious figure to the audience. "This," she said with determination, "is why he chose me. Because I'm not part of the church. I'm not restricted by its systems. I can reveal what others can't." Social media lit up again. Posts poured in. Who is the figure? Is she being followed? Some audience members clapped. Others sat still, caught in the gravity of the moment. Caroline placed the photo down, her voice now low but unwavering. "This person is only one part of the puzzle, but I won't stop until I understand all of it." Hannity, visibly shaken and uncertain, looked at her with a mix of admiration and concern. "Caroline, you're opening a dangerous door." "Are you sure you're ready to walk through this?" Hannity asked. She nodded, eyes locked on the camera. "I stepped through the moment I opened that envelope," she said, "and I won't turn back, no matter what's waiting." A loud crash echoed from backstage. Someone had forced a door open. The sound rippled through the studio, jolting the audience. A few gasped, some even cried out. Caroline Leavitt didn't flinch. Still holding the photo of the mysterious figure, she remained steady, eyes cold, yet focused. On the table beside her lay the Vatican envelope, the USB drive, and the photos, clear signs of the storm she had triggered. Hannity turned to the security team entering quickly. His voice was firm. "Caroline, we're facing a security issue. What you've revealed, the video, the identity of this figure. This is serious. What now? What are you expecting?" Caroline set the photo down. Her eyes swept over the anxious crowd, as though weighing the fallout. "I'm not expecting peace," she replied, her voice low and sharp, every word precise. "I knew the moment I opened that envelope everything would shift, but I didn't come here to be accepted. I came to keep a promise." Hannity signaled to calm the room, but tension lingered. "You've got global attention now," he said, with a mix of concern and admiration. "But do you think those behind the threats, the ones sending messages, will stop? What are you really up against?" She offered a faint, bitter smile. "I don't know exactly, but they're clearly afraid. Otherwise, why stir up chaos? Why send letters and photos? And now, that noise backstage." She nodded toward the commotion behind them. "They want to silence me. That only proves what I have is dangerous to them." The studio began to settle, but the energy was electric. Audience members raised phones, capturing every second. Online platforms exploded with posts. "She just poked a hornet's nest." Speculation swirled. Who is behind Snowman? Some hailed her as a whistleblower. Others questioned her motives. Caroline remained composed, sitting down again. Her gaze met Hannity's. I don't expect everyone to believe me right away, she said, calm but firm. I just hope they'll start asking questions. If there's nothing to hide, why the effort to shut me down? Hannity nodded, trying to steer the show back on track. You've opened the envelope, shown the footage and photos. Do you think this will cost you your job? What about the White House? How will they react? For the first time that evening, Caroline hesitated. I haven't told anyone at the White House, she admitted quietly. They thought I came here to discuss policy, but I knew once this aired, everything would change. I expect calls non-stop. I might lose trust. I might lose my position. But this isn't about my career. It's about something far more important. She pictured the moment she would leave the studio. Flashes from cameras, reporters yelling questions. They'll ask for proof. They'll ask if she's afraid, if she regrets it. Her answer was ready. I don't regret it, because if I don't speak, who will? Suddenly, a staff member rushed to Hannity's side, whispering urgently. He turned to Caroline. There's a group gathered outside, unidentified, asking to see you. It's tense. Security's keeping them back. Do you want to pause? She shook her head, eyes blazing. Pausing is exactly what they want, she said. I'll say everything, even if I have 1 minute left on air. She picked up the photo again, her voice urgent. What I've shown, the envelope, the video, the images, that's just the beginning. The Pope saw a threat greater than one to the Church. It's bigger than all of us. And I won't let the truth be buried. Applause broke out, hesitant, uncertain. One woman in the front row called out, She's telling the truth. Don't let them silence her. Another whispered, She's causing trouble. This is too much. Caroline heard it all, but didn't respond. She looked directly into the camera. I'm not asking anyone to protect me. I'm only asking you to listen. The truth doesn't need me to survive. It will come out, with or without me. Hannity, visibly moved, leaned forward. What's next? What happens after this? Caroline paused, eyes heavy. I'll go home. I'll hug my son. I'll tell my husband I did the right thing. But I know tonight won't be quiet. She raised her phone. The screen lit up with a message. Snowman does not forgive. You chose the wrong side. She read it aloud, her voice steady. The crowd felt the weight of the threat. Setting the phone down, she looked resolute. They think I'll be afraid. But I was raised in New Hampshire. My grandmother taught me that real faith means standing firm when everything falls apart. I won't run. Another loud noise erupted backstage. Security's voices shouted. Hannity stood, tension in his voice. Caroline, we may have to cut the broadcast. Security says the situation's getting out of control. She stood too, photo. Still in hand. Let them come, she said. I've said what needed saying. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a fight we all have to face. Some in the audience applauded again. Others remained frozen, uncertain. Social media surged with videos. Caroline holding the photo. Reading the message, standing firm. One user posted, Caroline Leavitt just took on the Vatican. Who is she? Another replied, a dangerous stunt. She turned to Hannity, her eyes clear. She was ready. I don't know what's waiting outside, she said, her voice low but unwavering. But I kept my promise. That's what matters. Hannity, for once, had no immediate words. He looked at her, then the audience. We've just witnessed a historic moment. Caroline, thank you, and be careful. She nodded, still looking into the camera, sending a final message. Truth is never easy, but it's always worth fighting for. The audience had just watched Caroline Leavitt reveal Vatican secrets through a letter, a video, and the image of a mysterious figure. Some applauded. Many sat in silence, transfixed. Caroline stood firm, photo in hand, like a symbol of defiance. Hannity, tense, tried to conclude. "Caroline," he said, "you have the world's attention. But after tonight, what's next?" She looked at him, unwavering though clearly burdened. "I'll keep going," she said, soft but cutting through the noise. "Not because I want to, but because I must. The Pope saw the bigger fight. I see it now too, and I'm just getting started." She stepped off the stage. Studio lights dimmed. Security surrounded her as she exited. Audience members rose. Some shouted, "Don't give up!" But she didn't look back. She held onto the photo, her guide for the road ahead. Outside, sirens blared. The crowd's shouts grew louder. Online, clips of her speech and the threatening message went viral. One user posted, "Snowman does not forgive. She chose the wrong side. She just challenged an unseen force. Bold or reckless," one post read. Another simply said, "Protect her." When Caroline returned to her Washington, D.C. apartment, it was late. The room was still, moonlight filtering in through the curtains. She sat on the sofa and checked her phone. Dozens of messages awaited her, some from colleagues, others from journalists, and many from unknown numbers. One stood out. There was no sender. Just a message. "Snowman is not the enemy. Find us where the light begins." Her brow furrowed. Her pulse quickened. Caroline thought of the Pope's words from her dream. "You'll see the darkness before the light." Was Snowman a hidden ally, or a calculated trap? The next morning, an unmarked package appeared at her door. Inside was a wooden rosary, its faint scent reminding her of the old church in New Hampshire where she grew up. A note lay beneath it. "Snowman lives. Go where the flame is lit." She held the rosary tightly. In that moment, she felt as though her grandmother stood beside her, whispering softly, "Don't be afraid, little one." The phrase, "where the flame is lit," might have meant the Vatican, or another mysterious place connected to the Pope's warnings. But going further could endanger her family. She stood in front of the mirror, no longer the girl from New Hampshire. She was now a woman carrying the weight of something far greater. Her phone buzzed. A call from a White House advisor. "Caroline, the president wants to see you. What you said last night caused serious fallout. You need to explain." She didn't answer. She knew the meeting could either salvage her position or be used to pressure her into silence. Outside, she heard a car rolling slowly down the street. Headlights slid across her window. Someone was watching, just like the cloaked figure from the photograph. Caroline sat at her table and began writing a letter to her son, unsure if she would return. "I did this so you could grow up in a world where truth still matters. If I was wrong, please forgive me." She folded the letter and placed it in the safe, next to the Vatican envelope. Then she walked to the window and looked up at the stars. "I made a promise," she whispered, as if speaking to the late Pope, "and I will keep it." She put on her coat, took the rosary, and stepped outside. A cold wind stirred, carrying a sense of tension. At the corner, a figure stood under the streetlight. Cloak rustling, friend or enemy, Caroline couldn't tell, but she didn't retreat. Meanwhile, social media was still flooded with speculation about snowmen. Who are they? Reformers? Extremists? One anonymous post read, "Caroline Leavitt just opened Pandora's box. Pray for her." She walked into the night, fingers clenched around the rosary. Her heart pounded, but her resolve stayed firm. She didn't know where the path led. Perhaps the Vatican, perhaps a hidden church, perhaps a confrontation with snowmen. But she knew this. Every step forward was a stand. Even if she didn't make it, the truth would. The cloaked figure in the distance seemed to signal. Whether as a warning or an invitation, she wasn't sure. But Caroline, carrying both belief and uncertainty, walked toward a future no one could predict. Caroline Leavitt's public disclosure of secrets tied to Pope Francis reflects deep tensions within American society, where truth often collides with power, media control, and fear. The threats she now faces, from anonymous messages, government pressure, and mysterious figures, mirror what many journalists, whistleblowers, and truth-tellers endure when challenging powerful institutions. Her decision to reveal the Vatican video wasn't just a political statement. It was an act grounded in freedom of expression, as protected by the First Amendment. But with that freedom comes risk, loss of security, credibility, even livelihood. Caroline's vision of the Pope and the prayers of her youth highlight the role of faith and family values, foundations that continue to guide many Americans, especially in communities like her own in New Hampshire. Her choice to keep going, even while being watched, symbolizes the strength to face adversity, an idea at the heart of the American dream. It's a reminder that truth requires not only courage, but also wisdom. In today's digital age, where social media amplifies both support and suspicion, standing by your values, like Caroline's belief in honesty and her grandmother's quiet strength, can keep you grounded. Her actions were for her son, her community, and a cause greater than herself. But above all, they were a call to protect what matters. Like the flame mentioned in the mysterious note, truth must be guarded, kept alive, but never allowed to burn out or consume everything around it. Subscribe to the channel to follow Caroline and the Secrets of Snowmen. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video with more revelations.